eventually the song came out that they were trying to play, and it went something like this. Baby, come back. Baby, come back. And that was how the song came about. But I mean, they were messing around in the studio so much, I thought these guys are never going to get it together.
Following Roger James's start in the music business under the wing of impresario Reg Calvert and his roster of artistes, performing as Robbie Hood and his Merry Men, as well as backing other singers on the Calvert package tours, Roger looked for new opportunities, both as a performer and now as a songwriter.
I started writing songs when I was about 13, and I'd got this song called You'll Never Get Away, and everybody seemed to like it. So I went into Denmark Street, and I got into Denmark Street with a chap called Alan Keane, and then I went with a chap who was the manager for Cliff Richard, Tito Burns, and all this time I was like Roger James. I'm trying to push myself and write songs for Joe Brown and Belle Dunican and all sorts of people, and all sorts of promises, and up and down from London. And so I went back to Evesham, my hometown. I formed a band with a chap called Jim Capaldi on drums. He's unheard of at the time, and another guy called Roy Banks, Tinker. And I formed that band, and then one night I was, this band came on at the town hall in Evesham, and I got up and sang a couple of songs with them. It was a band called the Cyclones, and they wanted me to join, and they said, okay, come down to Bristol with us. As I say, I got on the stage and went to join this band and went down to Bristol. And then I became a DJ for the Rank organisation, playing in a band on a revolver stage on the other side, and then coming down to play my discs on the other side of the stage. And then I went to Preston, because Gary Brown, who owned Top Rank Entertainment, he said to me, I got a job for you, because I was working with Tony Prince. He was the man who got me into being a DJ, because he wanted a break and he'd get me up on the stage. And so I became a DJ for a while, for about a couple of years, and I went to Preston and I formed a band called the Prestons. And then when we came to London to do an audition for Joe Meek at Joe Meek's studio, and I sang all my own songs and everything, and he said I always remember his very words, don't give up your day job. And of course, we all did. I went back to Preston and told the manager to stuff it, and Andy Lee was on bass. He was doing a bit of teaching at the time, and school teaching, and he packed his job in. Eugene Carberry, the drummer, I don't remember what he did, gardening or something, and he packed that in. And then there was Rob Decker, who was the keyboard man, who got us down there in the first place to audition for Joe Meek. That was my initial meeting with Joe Meek. I won't tell you what the next bit of the story, because it's a bit rude, but it did happen. But Joe wanted me to wear tighter trousers and dye my hair blonder, because I was going to take over in the Tornadoes from Heinz. But that's another story.
The Prestons were booked out for live shows by an agency in London called Galaxy Entertainments. For a short period through 1964, the agency had them working the pubs, clubs and ballrooms alongside the pre-Procol Harum band, the Paramounts, whose Gary Brooker Roger already knew quite well. It was during this time the Prestons were introduced to a singer from Coventry, Beverly Jones, who had a recording deal with EMI to sing a version of the Martha Reeves US hit Heatwave. The Prestons were booked to back Beverly. The project didn't have a B-side, and so Roger, when Julie asked, "Can you write something?" offered up his recently composed, yet so far unrecorded, I Hear You Talking.
She doesn't see, I think. Don't wear that ring she gave you, wear her out tonight. Don't wear it, baby, 'cause it just ain't right. And if you see me trying, you better
Under a new band moniker, the Roger James 4, Roger managed to record 2 singles with another EMI label, flexing his songwriting skills to try and blend with the times, such as the Searchers-like Leave Me Alone,
better than myself. But if you love him so, you better go and leave me alone.
and the modish You're Gonna Come Home Crying.
Baby, I told you that you best stop running around painting the town.
It led to an in-house writing job with EMI-owned song publisher Ardmore and Beechwood, housed in offices above the HMV record store on Oxford Street, London. One of the in-house tasks was to write lyrics to music demos that came in from the EMI Music foreign affiliates.
So when I was writing these songs to, these lyrics to foreign tunes, mainly Italian and the odd French one, and they said, this chap from France is going to send you a demo. So I gave him my address, and this demo came through the post. Probably got it somewhere with the postmark still on it, probably the stamp. And anyway, it was still sort of la 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 la, and then he'd go orchestre when he wanted the orchestra to come in, like a little bit of a passage of music, and then it would be back into the la 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 dee da 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 dee 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 dee. And I always remember it went and my lyrics were wind blow against my face, leave me not a trace of my sadness. Rain wash away the tears, take those happy years, those before me. My eyes can't help but crying, and my heart can't help the pain. I wish that there was something that could bring you back again, back to me. And that's all I can remember writing. I can't remember the second verse of it, but obviously it changed in the wash. Some perhaps weeks, maybe days after I'd written it, because this chap was quite excited to come over, this chap from France, Jacques. But anyway, he came over and he wanted to record it. So we took a studio somewhere off Bond Street and I can't remember the name of it. When we went in there, I remember Big Jim Sullivan was on guitar, I was on the other guitar. Obviously I sang it because I wrote the lyrics and everything. And anyway, Jack was really excited about it, and he went back to France, and I didn't hear it. I just carried on earning my £10 a week, writing English lyrics to foreign songs, and maybe a few of my own, and you know, them getting recorded in faraway places. not many in England. But anyway, I continued to do that, and that was when I was doing a gig in Park Lane. One night I got a phone call, and it was at this hotel on Park Lane, and this waiter came up to me and he said, Mr. Roger, phone call from Mr. Roger. So I put my hand up and he calls me over, and I go to the phone and I'm climbing over these old carpets rolled up and everything, and I get to the phone and it's a chap who was working at Ardmore and Beechwood. He was second in command, Vic Lewis was in charge, he was Vera Lynn's husband. Then you had this chap called Ron Cole, and then you had another chap called Jonathan Peel. There was like 3 commandos, and we were me, Claire Torrey and a few others, were like the staff writers. And they told us what to do, and you know, we cut our own records, we made our own acetates directly from the needle, and so I go over to this phone on the wall, and I go to the phone, pick it up. Hello, Ron Cole here. Ron, I haven't heard from you for ages. What are you doing phoning me at the Grosvenor House Hotel? He said, I've got some good news for you. He said, you know that song you wrote? I said, what, which one? He said, the one with Jacques, you know, the French one you put the lyrics to. He said, it's #1 in America. #1 in America. My heart went, I'm made up for life. And then in the next breath he said, but the bad news is, and I said, what? Why is it got to be bad news? Let me have it anyway. And he said, they didn't use your lyrics. And I thought, it's number one without my lyrics. And I didn't know how good the lyric was actually going to be. And it turned out to be that Paul Anka in America had written the English lyrics to us, changed the tune around a little bit, and it became My Way. And I thought, God, I wish they'd have used my lyrics. I went in and met Les Reed one day, and he said, you know, what's your reading like, your music reading, he meant. So I said, oh, it's not bad. He said, so you got electric and acoustic guitar, Roger? I said, yeah. And so Les was always looking out for me to try and, you know, build up the bank balance. So he gave me an advance royalty, and he was trying to get me onto sessions. So the first session he got me was at his own studios in an old church, Wessex Sound I think it was called, and it was in an old church, and there was a big orchestra, and it was for the Marianne Faithfull film. She was in it, called Girl on a Motorcycle. So anyway, I got to the studio, and I hadn't done any, well, not since Honest I Do, when I was with Danny Storm. I hadn't played in a recording studio, and I was a bit nervous. And the music was written in 7 flats. I think the key was something like F, no, it couldn't be F sharp minor, but it's G flat minor, and every note was a flat, and it was weird, and I was out of my depth. So I remember Les Hurdle was on guitar. He was top session guy at the time, and he was the bass player, sorry, and I can't remember who the guitar player was. And anyway, they were all far better than me, and they were all massive musicians, and I was out of my depth, and I thought, oh, I don't know whether I want to do any more of this. But after a while, I got a few phone calls from different people, and I ended up doing quite a lot of session work for library music and people that, you know, it's always who you know, isn't it? Contacts and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up doing quite a few for Pi, and I overdubbed some guitar that they didn't like. Some guy had put it on earlier. I thought it was fine, but they wanted me, so I did it. And I had my old Fender Telecaster 1965, which was a great sound. It was true to the country music style. And so I was doing quite a bit of session work at the time. And then I got a job back in PJ Proby for 2 weeks in Liverpool at the Wookie Hollow Club, or whatever it was called. Yeah, I think it was. And it was right opposite the Everton football ground, I remember. And I did that, and then I came back to London, and I was living in various bedsits, and then I ended up living with a couple of guys who were connected. Well, they were family, but I think they were second cousin or first cousin to the chap I lived with was Paul Gabriel and Paul Gabriel and his brother Bob Gabriel, and they were connected with Peter Gabriel. And he said, have you heard of Genesis? I said, no. And another person who lived in that flat with us at the time, used to drive me mad playing the out-of-tune piano when I was still in bed about 10 o'clock in the morning, was Joan Armour Trading. She was living there because my friend who I was in the top rank band at Bristol with was Helen Chappell, and I got her a job in hair. And I was no good at dancing, I didn't want to go nude on the stage anyway, but she said, I'll only do the audition if you do it as well, so I had to go and make a fool of myself on the stage. They went, next! It was all dark and I could see nobody, I could hear his voice, next! Anyway, she got the job and I didn't, and she ended up being Bob Gabriel's girlfriend. One night I was just sort of clocking off being a songwriter for the day at EMI, and I wandered out of the HMV record shop where we used to have our offices at Ardmore and Beechwood on the second floor, and I bumped into a chap and he said, "Look, why don't you come down to the studio around the corner?" He said, "I'm recording a band. You might be interested." So I said, "Okay." So I think it was Trident Studios, just round the corner from where we worked in the, being a staff writer at EMI. And I walked in, and there were these 4 chaps. They were trying to get in tune to put this track down. And the engineer, the other guy that was behind the desk, I knew him quite well. And he said to me, "Rog, you're a guitar player. Would you mind putting these guys' guitars in tune for them?" He said, "I can't stand it. I'm pulling my hair out here. It's so bad." So I said, "Well, look, it's not really done. I mean, one musician to another. You don't put somebody's instrument in tune. It's a bit insulting." So I never did it. And they were playing something like this. Maybe not quite that bad. They were playing like this. Baby, come back. Baby, come back. Maybe not quite that bad, but it's difficult to play out of tune. Baby, come back. Baby, come back. Baby, come back. It was really like that. It was really sort of amateurish, and I thought, this is not gonna work out. Like I say, it was about there. I could have just gone like that and put it probably in tune in about a second or two. But anyway, eventually it came out in tune, and it, "Baby, come back. Baby, come back. Baby, come back." And of course it was Eddie Grant, wasn't it, with the Equals, and he goes and gets a street named after him in Brixton, and the record went to #1. Just goes to show.